Assalamu alaikum. You are listening to Al Mubarak Radio with our official partners, Interpal. You're on the Improved Tuition Show. It's the education show by Mr. Dabhad. Today, we're going to be talking about how to learn, how parents can get their children to learn. Very important time for us. We're living in times where education is even more important than it was for us. And the reason for this is that we're not just competing within our own country, but we're competing internationally. China announced in 2012 that every child will have to learn English because it's going to be compulsory. And the reason why they're doing this is because they recognize the importance of English being the business language. So what implication does this have? Well, the implication it has on our children is that if Chinese, a population, the second largest population in the world, if they're going to have, they're going to be speaking English, they're going to be competing even so more than they had done in the past. So if they've been competing in manufacturing this, they're going to be competing on service sectors. So you may find that a lot of services could be outsourced to China. So we're now living in times when our children need an excellent education. If we don't give the children our what used to in is now changed in a matter of years. So it's important we give our children a strong foundation. If we don't give our children a strong foundation, it's going to have implications on their lives, on their family lives as well. So we're talking about how parents children to learn, because it's important that parents motivate their children. Now, we've got to understand that there are situations when children may not be able to learn. There might be problems motivating children, and the reason why there might be problems is because children might not appreciate why their parents are telling them to learn. So we've got life experience, and we have gone through 30, 40 years of life, 50 years of life. And we've seen what it takes to pay for a house, to pay for the car, to go pay for the holidays. And children in their young age, children at 7, 10, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, they're not going to really appreciate why we're saying this. They won't understand the bigger picture. And because they don't understand the bigger picture, it's probable that they may not take learning seriously. They might have no desire to learn as a result, and they might dislike school because they might dislike homework because they don't see the bigger picture of why it's important to learn. Now, it's very, very important that children have a very positive academic attitude, and it's the attitude that is important. And what I mean by attitude is attitude needs to be nurtured. What do I mean by nurtured? Well, I mean by nurtured is that we need to encourage children, we need to motivate our children to build a mindset, the right mindset to allow them to learn. And we have to provide them the right conditions as well. We've got to think about how can we instill the love and the belief of learning into children. So I'm going to repeat that question again. We need to think about how we can instill the belief and the love for learning so that they can succeed in this generation, in their generation. So we need to think about what parents can do, practical solutions on how they can encourage their child, how they can get them to learn. Now, many children have negative beliefs. These negative beliefs revolve around the fact that they can't learn, and many children feel incapable of learning. So they look at their work, they read the textbook, and they think, this isn't going in. This isn't. I'm not getting it. It may be, and for a number of reasons, it may be that they might not have the right reading skills. It may be that the learning might not be pitched correctly for them. So there's a lot of background work that they've missed out and they don't know about, and therefore this work is too challenging for them. And a lot of activities we find at school just don't make sense, and so they're hiding away like a hermit. And then they're getting distracted as they grow up, and the behavior goes down because they can't focus in learning because there's problems in their belief that, and because they feel that they're incapable of learning. So they believe in the situation. So they feel that it's because of the situation that they're unable to learn. It's because of the circumstances and their inability, and they don't recognize that it's because of the effort that is required for children to learn. So what they don't understand is they accept the situation, they accept the circumstance, but what they don't understand is that effort is required if they're going to succeed in education. And as a result, they have this negative belief about learning, that it's because of the situation that they're incapable of learning. Now, it's imperative that every child that goes to school should succeed. It's important. It's necessary. It has to be the case, because if you think about it, we give our children a good part of their life in schooling. So they're not with us from 9 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock, generally and approximately. So our children, if our child has problems, they have a problem with a disability, they have a problem with, they have a difficult temperament, or if they have gaps in their learning, and therefore there's a wide difference between what some children are achieving and what other children are achieving, then what's happening is children will feel frustrated and they'll believe in the situation, thinking that, no, I'm incapable of. And what is important is that if we're sending our children to school, it's important that the school is also accountable to helping the child. Now, the characteristics of a child can also influence learning. What do I mean by the characteristics of a child? Well, if a child is going through some trauma, if they are depressed because they are under chronic life stress, and in this day and age, children go through situations where families break up, and there's high levels of separation, and there's high levels of divorces. This can affect the mind of the child, and it can affect the emotional balance of the child. And they have things running in their minds which which will not allow them to think learning is important. So if you can imagine, if a child is sitting down with their books, and if they are having, there's regular family problems and they've got tension in their minds, then their mind is going to go out and it's going to wander. And as it wanders, it's not they're just going to get 10% or 15% or 20% of what they could achieve. And this is because there's they're having problems at home, and so it's unrealistic for parents to put great demands on the children in these situations. From my own experience, what I could say is, what parents should do is parents should work on the emotional balance of the child first. If you can get the emotional balance of the child. That's the emotional balance of the child, so that the child is happier. Then everything else comes in. You can get the health, you can get them to eat, you can get them to study, and the atmosphere around the house you create is really, really important. So one of the main thing is managing the emotional balance of that child, because if you don't manage the emotional balance of that child, then if they have that textbook in front of them, then they are going to be unable to concentrate on this, and they're not going to be able to um, focus. But if you get the emotional balance under control as a parent, so you manage their emotional behavior, then that will significantly increase the child's performance at school. Now, schools nowadays are very competitive, and schools compete with each other, and they're on a league table, and there's a lot of pressures on children to perform well. So children, schools which are of a similar socio-economic background will be working, will be competing with each other, and the popular will send our children to those schools we feel not just close to us, but if they're an outstanding school, then there'll be a fight for places. But what's important is, and I believe that many teachers do know this, is to focus solely on competition is not the best way, because if we focus on competition, then what will happen is those children who are the best will keep on achieving, and those children who aren't always capable will lag behind. So everybody needs to be rewarded, rewarded. They need to be rewarded depending on their situation and their own ability. So a child who's not as able, if he or she produces a good piece of work, should be rewarded. And this schools acknowledge that, schools understand this. But it's always important to know that, and bring this to our minds anyway. Now, as a parent, what can you do to help your child? Well, as a parent, what you need to do is you need to have a strong relationship with the child. If you don't have a strong relationship with the child, then you're not going to be able to get the child or nurture the child to do what you want them to do. So if you need you so talking about emotional balance earlier, you've got to get the emotional balance, then you have to build a strong relationship, and you have to talk about why school is important, and you have to talk about the bigger picture of schooling, and how it should um and we've got to acknowledge success. So what is important is we've got to talk about why it's if children are doing well, and if children are working hard, then if they have successes, then we've got to, as parents, we've got to tell them, look, you've done fantastically well here, and you've done amazingly well, and you need to realistically talk about the child and tell them that they've done well here, and you've got to encourage them. So we shouldn't always just concentrate on the negatives. We should talk about the negatives and how they can improve themselves as next steps. But it's important to keep the morale of a child, to give them that buzz that they're succeeding, and give them that feel that they're in control. And it's important that we tell them that they're doing well. Another key important point is many children go through the education. They go through every year. They go through year 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. They go to the A levels. They go through the universities, and these children do not know how to learn. I'm going to repeat this again. These children do not know how to learn, and the problem here is if you don't know how to learn, and if you don't have these skills on how to learn, then this is going to hold you back. You can look at a piece of text, and you can, if you don't have the right reading strategies, regardless of the subject, if you don't have the right reading methods and the right reading skills, then what can happen is you could spend 1 hour on a piece of, and on a paragraph or a page, but you could actually learn a paragraph within 3 to 4 minutes if you know how to deploy, if you know how to use, if you know how to use these skills of how to learn. So reading skills are very, very important. How to learn, when to learn, the timing of learning, when's the best time to learn, when to switch subjects, what exam techniques. These are all very important things that children should know. Parents should help children to read books, perhaps, on how to learn. It's not just about how to, studying, but they should know how to learn within a set number of hours. If you've got 15 hours in a week to study, how can I use that time, 2 hours every night maybe, to get the best out of my study? Or if you've got unnecessary demands on your time, then what can I do? How can I use my time best so that I can get the maximum learning in that time? And this is important. That's why it's so important. That's why it's so important to know how to learn. And this is something that a lot of parents should encourage their children. If you know how to learn, and if this can come into the children's lives early, then they can achieve absolutely anything. I'm talking from an educational expert point of view, that if children know how to learn, they can save themselves time. They can retain information longer. They can keep information so that they know that, okay, this is the right time to revisit and relook and re-revise this topic. Because if that information is not revisited, and if it is not relooked at, and if it's not revisioned, and we don't go through the revision of it, then what can happen is children can forget the knowledge after 2 days. So you might have spent 2 hours learning a topic, and you can lose all that in 2 days. You begin to lose it, and by the 7th day and the 14th day, you've forgotten all about it. So revisiting topics is a critical part of learning, and parents should encourage their children to say, look, are you revisiting your topics regularly? Children are children. They're learning. They're learning about life and how to manage time. And we need to nurture them and encourage them to build the right study habits and the right routines. And if we have the right study habits, and if we have the right routines, then I'm pretty sure that these children will succeed. Now, you're on the Improved Tuition Show. You can go on our website, www.improvedtuition.org. That's www.improvedtuition.org. Soon, I'm going to be putting some information about how to learn on my website, and there's going to be case studies on how high achievers succeed. So I'm going to put this information onto our website so you can follow. I'm going to also be putting articles up on our website so you can see and follow, and the things I'm talking about on the radio show, I'm going to be writing up as well. So this is going to possibly most likely happen in January. That's what I'm targeting. Okay. To encourage a positive family relationship and responsibility, we've got to make sure that we tame our children and we train our children so that they become responsible children who will grow up to be responsible citizens. So I can say I can say my mum, she did everything for me. And when I went into university and I lived away, it was a shock. It was a shock to do my bed. It was a shock to do my ironing, my cleaning, my cooking, and it took time to adjust. Now I was lucky enough to live away to in London, and therefore I was 200 miles away and I picked up these life skills, and they have been so useful in my later life. But responsibility is making children responsible is very important, and parents should get the children to do things around the house. They should get the family. They should get the family, the children, to do routines so that they become responsible. But it's not just about just making the children responsible, but it's also about family relationships and how families get on. And you're going to be the head of a family, and you're going to be the leaders of your family, and you're going to be the management of the family. And it's very important that children also have family fun time. So it's not just about just education, but it's important that it's learning is all around, and they have that break in their minds, and they can have that rest, and they can just do nothing one day in the week, and they can do whatever they want. And you've got to give them this, and you've also got to give them, like, my children have family Friday fun, and they look forward to Friday fun. And Friday fun is about the children. They choose to do what they wish, and we do it. So they will pick and choose, and we'll discuss it. Now, I'm not saying we do it every week and it's a regular pattern, but we look forward to it, and we look forward to it as parents. Now, you've got to also take an interest in your child. If a child comes in from school, if child comes home from outside, you've got to take an interest in your child, because if you don't take an interest, who is going to take an interest? And it's important to let the child know when they're doing well, and that you tell them, look, I'm happy with what you're doing. And when you talk to a child, you talk about their own interests, you get to know the child even more. I've had situations where, out of my two children, I've taken one child out on a day, and another child out on another day. So one child I've taken out on a bike ride, and I spent time with that child to get to know the child better. And another time I've taken my daughter out to a restaurant, and I've done that. You don't. It doesn't mean spending time doesn't mean you spend time just as a family, and it always has to be every single one or member of the family. It can be that you yourself begin to take that child out in your own time. So you take your son out, or you on one day, and another child out another day, and you could do that. And this shouldn't, you shouldn't feel guilty about this, because you are building that bond with your child, and you're building that relationship with your child. And if you build that relationship with your child and that bond with your child, what will happen? Well, what you're going to happen is you're going to be better able to nurture that child, so that you're going to be better able to influence them in their learning and take an interest in their learning. Modeling the importance of learning is very important. So parents should show, they should demonstrate, they should show what good learning is. So you yourself should read newspapers. You read magazines. You yourself should read books. And if you have this love for reading, then children will develop an interest, because what you have then is you have an opportunity to talk about the book you're reading, or the magazine you're reading, or the newspaper article you're reading. And when you're getting that opportunity, you're drawing the child into reading, because reading is a significant part of learning. And if the children know how to read, and they have the right reading strategies, and if they have the right reading skills, when they can look at any subject and digest that information. Reading isn't just about, well, I'm reading some words in a sentence. Reading is about how what ways you're using, what strategies you're using, what methods you're using to allow you to understand that piece of text. And if you wait till later years, year 10, year 9, or year 11, then it's going to be late for the child to pick up these reading skills. These reading skills need to come early. They need to come early because then their reading skills can mature. And many times when you've got two children, they might be of the same ability, but it's how smart one child knows how to read and take that information in. Like I said, you can save time by knowing which methods to use to read. So by you demonstrating, by you modeling reading around the house and talking with your children about about reading, the importance of learning is being reinforced, it's been implanted, and it's been instilled in your family life. Talk to the children about your likes, talk to the children about your dislikes, talk about topics. You see, some parents, as young as one day, some parents, when a baby is one day, you see them talking so much to the children. Now, not all parents appreciate why this is important. There's research to show that if parents talk to their children and they use vocabulary, then the children become much more smarter. This is research, and there is a lot of research out there which tells us that this is good. So when a child is 2 years old and 3 years old, and the parent and the mother is talking about the environment around them, and the colors around them, and the sizes around them, and the things around them, then and the question around them, that's really good, because it's proven, it's researched that this helps children academically later on in life. As I mentioned earlier, children need to know why they're learning. They need to understand what the bigger picture is. If there isn't a bigger picture why they're learning, if you don't kindle that interest, if a child wants to go into electrical engineering, then if you don't let them research that area, then they won't have that first. If a child has a goal in their life that I want to go into electrical engineering, or I want to go into chemical engineering, then what it's doing is it's developing a goal. I've seen children perform far better when there are clear objectives. There's clear things that they're aiming for. When I was as a child, when I was younger, the children who knew that they wanted to do A, B, C, D, then they went for that, and because they set themselves a target, a goal in their minds, and subconsciously or consciously they work towards that. How many times do you talk about your child and their school life? How often do you talk to your child about what's happened in school? It's not about just basic summaries, but their relationships with other friends. How many times do you talk about the relationship with the teacher and what they're learning in school and the topics they're learning, and just an overall all-angle conversation with the child? How many times have you tried that? And if you have tried it, then how consistent are you? Are you consistent in you showing an interest in your child? Because if you show an interest in your child, if you have the motivation and if you show the interest, then what will happen is this will rub off on your child. as I was mentioning earlier, get the children to research careers. That's Get the children to research those careers that they're interested in. Let them see what is involved. If a child wants to go into chemical engineering, let them see YouTube videos. Let them read around that. Let them see things and read things around that so that they get an understanding about what chemical engineering is. Chemical engineering is all around us. For example, soap, that's to do with chemicals. People experiment with chemicals and they basically experiment and work, and it's so interesting. But what I'm really saying is you've got to give the children the opportunity to let them know if they're at an age where they're 16 years old and they're going to be going into universities, create situations where they can maybe shadow somebody in chemical engineering, or go into hospitals if they want to go into the medical field, or if they're going into want to become accountants, or if they're going to become artists or architects, whatever they're hoping to become, or graphic designers or designers of any type. Give them that opportunity of a real life situation and encourage them to find placements where they can experience this, so that they get a taste, they get a flavor of this, so that they can see and see what they may be getting themselves into. They might find that they don't like the atmosphere and the environment, and it's not what they thought it was, and they might take a complete different direction. But it's always sensible, even if they know what what subject they want to study at university and what career is it they're pursuing, I would advise parents to encourage children to take a rational view, so that they have an opportunity to try not. So, for example, let's take a situation where a child wants to go into chemical engineering. Then, if a child also tries other areas which are not to do with chemical engineering, then they'll come and make a more of a rational decision and a more reasoned decision than just having to just say to just go one track minded and just choose one career. So I would always advise children, parents even though they might have a strong feeling about a subject, I would always say, look, try other things before you make that university application. I would advise that, because you might find that it wasn't for you and it's not you. So it's important that they discover their interest in a practical way as well. Children, we've got to get children to learn. We've got to get children and encourage children to learn. We need to motivate children to learn. And the routines at home are very, very important. Routines are important because if you don't have children in a routine, and then they may not be organized. If they're not organized, then they're going to waste that half an hour on things that they shouldn't be doing. So they might, if they're disorganized, we don't know where the pens are, where the folders are, we don't know where the books are, we're everywhere. They don't know when we're supposed to study and when we're not supposed to study, when we're going to be watching TV, when we should be studying, and they're going to be on their computer games and they should be studying, and vice versa. So it's important that there should be a regular routine, a time during the day when the child knows at this time I'm expected to study, I'm expected to learn, and I'm expected to work. And if this is not in, if the children aren't in a routine, then it will, they won't know when, you won't know when they should be studying, and they won't know when they should be studying. And this can cause a lot of wastage of time. So, for example, if your child comes back from school or on an evening, they come back from wherever, then they need to know that, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to eat and then I'm going to study. And I'm going to study for X amount of time. And I'm going to do this every day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And I'm going to try my best to cover all my work during the week so that on Saturday or Sunday, one day, half a day, or one day, I'm going to be able to rest and just relax and just take it easy and let my mind relax. So knowing when to study is very important. Knowing what times to study is it's very, very important. Children, parents should create an atmosphere where the child does want to study. So if there's a room, it needs to be clean. They should have a desk. They should have a comfortable chair. We should have stationery where there should be enough paper or enough books or a bookcase, and they need all this so that the children can easily set into their studies. So when they start studying, they have the right, they're studying the right area. It's important that children are away from a lot of noise. If children have a lot of noise, or if they have, for example, what I would do is I wouldn't have a laptop near me if it was a distraction for me, because some children have some people just end up browsing. So it's important that they don't have the distraction. So if you have a mobile phone, for example, I would say, and you're likely to play on the mobile phone or get onto that WhatsApp or go onto that social media site, then I would encourage you not to have, whilst you're studying, I would encourage you not to have that phone near you. So studying in the right area, studying the right time, having the right routines, they're all interrelated and they all are very, very important. So before children have fun time, it's imperative that they complete their work. Because if we don't complete the work, then what will happen is that it's going to linger in the mind. And when the homework needs to be handed in, it's going to be rushed. It won't be worked to the best of the ability, because best of child's ability, then it will lead to problems. This is a point I would really stress, and it's about respect. If you have a disagreement with a child's teacher, if you have a disagreement with a child's tutor, I would really stress that you don't create a commotion near the child. The reason why is they will too will lose the respect. They will have that respect, and as a result, the learning that will take place will not be maximized. Because if mum or if dad isn't respecting the teacher or the tutor, then don't expect the child to respect in return. And who's going to lose is the child. So any disagreement should be handled not never near a child. It should never ever be handled near a child. You've got something to say to the teacher which you're not happy about, speak to them privately, not near your child. Parents should get the child to learn, and how it's important that parents follow learning throughout the year, and we don't just wait for the end of year report, the end of year report, which will basically tell them how the child has done during the year, because by that time it'll be 1 year in and you will lose a lot of time. So it's important that you monitor the planner regularly. You check what's happening in high schools. In primary schools, it's much more. Primary schools are much more open and where you can easily see the teacher, but be realistic. Teachers, it'd be naive to think a teacher's job is just 8:30 till 3:15. It isn't. The time it takes them to teach a subject, they probably need the same time to prepare for the subject. So a lot of times, a lot of teachers spend one day on a weekend preparing for the subjects, and they have to prepare resources. By resources, I mean worksheets, and they need to organize activities and tasks, and it's an overwhelmingly a large responsibility. And therefore, if you have 30 parents when demanding from the teacher, it's unrealistic. So I would really encourage parents to be reasonable and be realistic. And if you have a conversation, say on a Friday evening or after school, make it short and snappy, but don't make it like every single day, so that it basically it can create, it's unfair to the teacher. So earlier I mentioned that children need to create good study skills, and children need to develop good routines. They need to know how to study. They need to have a right area of study. They need to have that fun time as well. So they have that break. So when they finish their work, they can relax and enjoy and let that air come into their minds, and just have that oxygen and fresh air, and so that they can relieve the stress. So it's really, really important that children do also have good time where we'll just have a break. Now you're on the Improved Tuition Show. It's Mr. Dabhad, and you can go on our website on www.improvetuition.org. Our website gives you a lot of information about the services we offer. We offer both center services as well as online services. So if you're local to Batley, Dewsbury, Heckmawag, Ravensthorpe, Bradford, we we're in that area. We also provide online tuition. So if you are in the UK, you are in the USA, you are in Canada, you are in Australia, you're in New Zealand, you're in China, you're in the Middle East, whichever part of the world you're in, we also offer online tuition. And you can email us on info@improvetuition.org. That's info@improvetuition.org. So if children are having problems, and if they're already having problems, it's important not to be negative, and you create that emotional balance, and you develop that emotional balance in that child, and that sustain that emotional balance, so that the child is getting the right support, so that they can learn. So you need to motivate the child, and you need to find out. So you can bring it in a tutor. If a child is not everyone is tutored to individual, is not everyone is tutored, can concentrate in a class. Some children have a natural tendency to be distracted around them, and when they have a natural tendency to distract around them, what they will do is they won't be able to take that information in, what the teacher is saying. Some children learn better on an individual basis, or very small groups, and in you want to go to a tuition place which has no more than 4 children, because if they have more than 4 children in a group, then it's much more difficult unless it's a small class base. I would also say to parents that individual tuition, if you can afford it, go for individual tuition. But not everyone can afford individual tuition, because individual tuition is usually a lot more expensive. Now, give the children the right support. Give them the right. Speak to the teacher. If you have problems, maybe a sibling in the home can help, or maybe you can help, or maybe an uncle or an aunt can help. get whatever support you can. Outside school and inside school. So talk to the teacher if you need to. So there's many sources by which children can get help. Um, One of the ways that a child can get help is, like I mentioned, an uncle or an aunt or a friend. Um, maybe they can pair up with a friend, and maybe, do you know, one of the best ways to learn is if you put your child in a situation where they're having to explain. They will organize the information much better, and they will learn far faster if they have the opportunity to tutor or teach a friend or on the subject. So you should try giving children the opportunity, because it's a magical trick to learning. If you, rather than have just been a listener, get the child to tutor, and get the child to develop that understanding by being put into that situation where they're having to explain. And if they're having to explain, then that will allow that child to learn faster, because research shows clearly that if a child teaches or tutors, then they take maximum learning rather than the listener. I mentioned earlier that it's important to keep a relationship with the child's teacher at school, so they can tell you about the progress of a child, that you're not leaving it to the last moment, and you're not leaving it to the end of your report or the mid-year report where you're in shock and you're panicking. It's important to get an idea of what their child is supposed to be, where the child is. What you should be able to track the child's progress. If they have a weakness in, say, maths or English or science, uh, get that help early from the school, um, or give them that help at home. Otherwise, they will lag behind, and when before you know it, they've wasted a year. Now, sometimes in situations where the child is just having some serious problems, and in situations where the child is not learning at all, and the progress is very minimum, you might want to consider and encourage the school to get a child psychologist. Now, there shouldn't be a stigma attached to this, but a child psychologist can help nurture the child and understand the barriers, and allow them to remove those barriers in that child's mind or in that child's life, which will allow them to learn. So, a child psychologist, if a child is, for example, a visual learner, and they just don't listen, they don't learn by reading words, then they can tap into that child's mind and get that progress happening. So it's not, you can, the school can refer a child to a child psychologist, a school psychologist, and help. And there shouldn't be a negative stigma attached to this. As I mentioned as well, there's after school tutoring, and there's also homework clubs as well. Homework clubs are situations where you're not they have some space to learn. So if your child finds that they can't do the homework because mum and dad are conversant with the learning, and they're not used to the modern learning, then what you can do is you can put them into a homework club where they can get the help. Now, that's very different from tuition. Tuition is where they're accountable for the progress, but with the homework club, the homework club will help the child, and there's usually much larger numbers, and it's a bit like class-based learning, in the sense that children will have a variety of learning and learning to do and homework to complete, but it won't be like a progression. So it won't be like, okay, the tutor knows what's happening. We do topic A, when we go move on to B, C, D. When we're ready to do D, we finish D, we move on to E, and we finish E, we move on to F, and we develop cumulative learning, or we develop understanding of topics. But with homeworks, it's just a space to study, and it's a space to get that help, in which we might not necessarily get that help at home, or it might give that routine again. It might be a routine where the child from 3:15 to 4:15 goes to that homework club after school, or on a weekend, and gets that routine as well, so it can fit into the routine of things in a nice environment. So special needs children need help early, and as I mentioned earlier, parents send their children from 8:30, 8:45 till 3 o'clock, to 3:15 to 3:30. It's a large proportion of their time, and so it's important schools and parents all recognize that this is valuable years, valuable months, and valuable weeks, and valuable days, and valuable time that the child is spending in the care of the school, and therefore the child school is accountable for their progress. So if the child is developing but in special needs, then you've got to be able to get that right help and from the school, and influence the school to give them that child the help. Now, resources are scarce, resources are limited. um, there's usually one teacher in a class, or maybe a teaching assistant, and so you've got to be practical, and so you've got to get the right balance of help in school and outside school, and that must be a routine. Now, I've seen children succeed by parents talking to the teachers regularly. If you take an interest in your child's learning, you're 17% more likely to see success in your child's education than if you didn't take an interest in your child's learning. So it's important and it's imperative that we any problems, if a child is having learning difficulties, if there's a disability in learning, it's addressed, and you don't leave it till too late, because in later years it'd be much harder to catch up than in earlier years. Don't leave it to the last moment when they're in the later years, because it needs to be, there's got to be that then problems need to be addressed early. So I mentioned earlier that we're living in a world where we have countries like India, we have countries like China, and India has a large population, and so does China. And these Asian countries are growing up. Now, when I went to India in the 90s, I didn't really see that much of a middle class, but within 5 years, in 2004, I saw I saw America there. I saw the roads develop. The motorway used to be a single road from Mumbai to going along Surat in Gujarat. Now, I was amazed. Within 5 years, I saw this road, and I noticed that the road was relatively empty. But by 2007, I noticed that there were a lot more cars on these roads. Now, this is because the Indians are now, a lot of them are valuing education. They're also the parents in the villages are sending their children to the cities, and they're getting themselves educated, and they're going on to professions, into careers, and they're having the lifestyle that we've enjoyed for a long time. Now, why am I discussing this? I'm discussing this because in the past 30 years, we've seen almost everything being manufactured abroad. I remember the time when we were just on the borderline where 30 years ago, we had things manufactured here, but it was a dying trade. For many trades were dying. Many things are now manufactured. If you go to an exhibition in China, if you go to an exhibition in Beijing or Shanghai, if you go to an exhibition in other Asian parts of the world, you'll be amazed what they produce and everything that we see around us. Whether if you go into supermarkets, you see the bottles, you see the packaging, you see the items. Everything is almost manufactured in the hub of China. Now, similarly, since 2012, the Chinese government recognizes that English is an international language. And when I've been in China as well, and I've looked at China, and I've been in Shanghai, and I found that this is going back in 2007, and I noticed that many people didn't speak English. I went with my father, and many people didn't speak English, and there was a translator who basically translated things. Now, even a translator wasn't that effective, but things are changing now in China. By 2014, by 2012, it became legislation that children need to learn English. Everyone by the age of 40 who are in industry need to read a certain level and speak a certain level of English, because they recognize that the business language is English, and that everything that is the prime language, and this is the language of business. If you go to places like India, you go to the offices, people will the language that will be spoken will be English. Now, you'll rarely find that Gujarati, Punjabi, Urdu are languages that are spoken in India or Pakistan. In this environment, in this business atmosphere, their business language will be English. And therefore, with China now recognizing the importance of English more so than we did 30 years ago, it could mean that many of the financial services that are the core of the United Kingdom in London, such as insurance and investment banking, are moved to these parts of the world. It's possible that this could happen. Technology allows many jobs which are within the service sector to be done in remote parts of the world, which traditionally we couldn't be done in the UK. And what I'm really saying to parents is that there's going to be increased competition, more fierce competition for them jobs than ever before. There's going to be children are going to have to be more mobile in moving than ever before. They will have to move out of their comfort zone. These are words that some people might not really understand the context in what I'm saying, but look at how things have changed in just one recession. What the world was like before the recession and what the world is like coming out of a recession. Think about the recession. Those people are old enough where what was the world before the 1992 recession, and what was the world like after the recession. After the recession, there was the internet, there was a growth of the internet, and the global community became much closer. In the 80s, it wasn't as close as it is today. So what I'm really saying is, for one job, you'll have those people from China, you'll have those people from India competing for these jobs. And this is going to be the norm in the lives of our children. And therefore, education will play a bigger part. Unfortunately, for if the governments don't address the inequality that is being created because between the people who aren't as educated and who are educated, and the gap is widening, then they need to look at they also need to look at that model and sustain countries. Because if you don't sustain countries, then what could happen is you might get some nutter getting into power. One of the problems in the Great Depression of the 1930s was that there was inequality between the rich and the poor. There was one group of people, the Jewish people, who were doing exceedingly well and were businesses, whereas the people in Germany, the laymen, were basically going through the deep recession, and well, it wasn't a deep recession; it was a depression. And what happened was there was animosity between the German people and the Jewish people because there was a massive inequality gap. And because then immigration became a problem because there was jealousy between the Germans and the Jews, and there was somebody to blame on the plight of the Germany. So that's, I'm not just saying that this was one reason, but what I'm saying is that this could really happen because of the inequalities that people are experiencing more so now. Um, it leads to those people who are poor saying, "Why am I not over there?" Countries will say, "Why are we not living the lifestyle of the West? Why are we not able to do the things that people in the West do?" In the Arab world alone, there is 25% unemployment. Now, that's 25% unemployment. Now, why I'm talking about these world factors is that that people um, who don't have education. I'm saying there's a lot of people who do really, really well. People like, for example, Microsoft. But how many Microsofts are there? How many Microsofts are there? People who don't have the education who've done it as well. So educate, and even within Microsoft, do you think Bill Gates is going to employ somebody who hasn't got that marketing degree, or who doesn't have that accountancy degree, or who doesn't have that law degree to run his company? These companies are run by educated people, and therefore it's imperative, it's important that these children and our children get a good education, because we're living in a time where there's a lot of global competition for jobs. Children will have to be mobile. If you don't understand what I'm saying, at this particular time, you'll see that there'll be more people. How many people do you hear that go to Dubai for a job or a career? You can hear him increasingly more. How many people will you hear that will go to India or China to do jobs? You'll hear more and more of this in this next 10 years, in the next than you've ever done before. And education will play a massive part. Now, you've been on the Improved Tuition Show. We're going to be taking a break for 15 minutes. I hope you've been enjoying the show up to now. If you've got some comments, you can always text me. You can text me on 0795 1918 If you want to give me feedback on these education shows, I'd be very, very grateful. A couple of weeks ago, I had numerous texts and feedback on the show, and I've had parents saying that they've been rewinding the information I've been parting, and they've been listening to it again and again and again and again, and they're applying that with their children. So there's a lot of information, a lot of experience that I have that I'm sharing with you that you can use with your children. But it'd be nice to engage with you parents as well. So it'd be nice to get that text off you, and we could discuss it in a more open way. So there's a two-way conversation. I would love that first person to send that text, because I know you're listening to it. Parents are telling me that they're listening to my videos and they're watching my videos, and they're texting me and sending me some information to me. So please do send me that information. Send me a text so that today, whilst I'm on the program, so I can discuss this with you. You can go on our website as well, www.improvedtuition.org, and I'm going to take a short break for 15 minutes. Okay, you're back on the Improved Tuition Show. You are listening to Al Mubarak Radio with our official partners, Interpal. You're on the Improved Tuition Show, and the second part of the show is going to be talking about how to learn. So there's going to be some crossover between the last topic and this topic, but I think this is going to be a really important subject because many people don't know how to learn. And those people who do know how to learn are the ones who are getting their A stars and their A's and they're performing really well. So I'd like to share some excellent advice, some expert advice, so that we can encourage every child to succeed. Now, it's important that children know how to learn and how to revise, because if they don't know how to revise, then they could not be using their time in a great way. What do I mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is if a child has got a paragraph to learn, you might have two children of the same ability. One child knows how to learn, the other child has the ability but doesn't know how to learn. So he might spend, say, a paragraph reading, and the other child might spend a paragraph reading. And what will happen is there will be one child will accelerate rapidly, and within a matter of 3-4 minutes, we'll be able to turn that information around. And for that child, he might be struggling after half an hour or even an hour. Now, this may be to do with reading skills. This might be to do with a lot of factors. But I'm going to share some advice that you can share with your children, or children who are listening can take, so that we can succeed in our learning. Now, it's important that children know how to read. And when they read the information, one of the things that they can do is they should read a sentence. And many times you can pick up 1 or 2 or 3 keywords. So you could look at a sentence and pick up the key words or key phrases which are the subject of that paragraph. And when you pick up the key words and key phrases in that paragraph, then it focuses, and then the child should visualize or ponder or or spend time understanding how these words are connected, one subject or one phrase or one keyword to the other, and then build their own vocabulary around that. Now, when the child then goes on to the second sentence, this is repeated. And what you then do is the child then focuses on the keywords and the key phrases in that. Now, what another child might do is they might focus on just trying to memorize the two sentences, and it might take them 20 minutes to memorize it, whereas child A is picking up the keywords, putting it into his own words, putting time into understanding, and then he memorizes it. So whereas the second child, child B, he's trying his best to memorize it, and it's not about memorizing, it's about understanding, and that can exhaust the brain, it can tire the brain out, and before you know it, you can't keep up with the studies, and that becomes frustrating. Now, what nowadays, what is really really good is that children, where they have a problem with a topic, and as they're going through the sentences, if they feel that they still don't understand, then they can, and they write the notes and they still don't get it, then they can type in the topic information and into YouTube, and they can then read and listen to the topic and on YouTube, and get an idea of what it means. So what you're doing is you've got one, on the one you can write your notes, on the second part you can also listen or read, listen to YouTube videos, and try to listen to those YouTube videos that are short. They might be 3 minutes long, 4 minutes long, 5 minutes long, 6 minutes long, 7 minutes long. Keep them not short and snappy ones, and those that are popular ones, those where there are significant views, I try to go to them, and be clever with the phrases and keywords you use in typing the searches. If you've got a book like a CGP book, you can use the subheadings of the keywords and type them into YouTube, and by you reading and then listening to the YouTube video, your understanding is going to grow, and as your understanding grows, you're going to become more confident, and your notes will become much better as well. Some people listen to podcasts. Bite Size has some excellent podcasts, and BBC Bite Size, GCSE Science, all the BBC Bite Size, My GCSE Science, My Maths, all these have some excellent material, excellent guides, and excellent notes which you can use to help you. So people learn in different ways. Some people learn by watching, some people learn by listening, and some people learn by doing, and some people learn by most people learn with a combination of these. And YouTube, I find, for many people works so well alongside with revision aids, and it speeds up the learning so much when you use these techniques. Now, you're on the Improved Tuition Show. It's Mr. Dabhad, and you can call us today on 0795 1918 152. That is 0795 1918 152. Why don't you send me a text, and I can then respond to your question on education and how to learn. Now, I've got a caller. I'm not sure whether it's going to be too related to the show, but I'm going to answer it. Improved tuition. Improved tuition. Hello? Okay, so that was not from our local area. So anyway, if he rings back, I'll call him back. I'm willing to take calls and love to take your inquiries and love to take your ideas about learning. It'll be very encouraging. We seem to have had our first call, but there was a problem with reception. It got cut off. You can try again if you're listening, caller. Now, so try to teach yourself topics that you don't understand. So if there are topics you don't understand after watching YouTube clip, after reading your note, after reading the revision book, after writing your notes. Teach yourself, and when you teach yourself, you increase the ability to retain that information when just listening to somebody. So it increases your learning by 80%, and this is through research. These aren't my figures. This is through academic research that children who teach themselves learn quicker than children who don't. So if you've got A who is teaching himself and pupil B isn't, then A will in 1 hour will learn a lot more than B. So going back to my point about A and B, if A improve tuition. Hello, yes, yes. Is it possible I speak to you later because I'm not able to talk right now? Is that okay? But I will call you. I will call you back. I'll call you back after 7:15. Thank you. Bye. Right. So now it's BBC. So we're talking about BBC. We're talking about BBC Bite Size and my GCSE Science and my Maths, and we're talking about how you can teach yourself topics that you don't understand. So we can use diagrams, we can use colors, we can use notes. We all can use diagrams in special ways. So if you have an A4 piece of paper, have multiple colors, use diagrams to make illustrations. Some people have visuals, and if you use your piece of paper and you use many colors and you use diagrams and color code things, and then it will help your learning, because these are techniques in taking information in. And now then what you do is once you've collated the notes, once you've watched the videos, once you've listened to the podcast, once you've read them revision guides, try and condense your notes. So you should always try to then condense your notes further and further. So you might redraft your notes, and later on you might redraft them later again, and to a point where you get them onto cards. So you should always look to not immediately, but as you learn, you should try and narrow that, to condense that information. Right, and so it's important that children use techniques which is going to help them maximize their learning. So before you do a piece of learning, what it's important to do is it's important that you set the task at hand. So you know what subject you're going to do, you know which task you're going to do, you know which topic you're going to do, and you're taking that time out to plan your work. And planning your work is very important because it can save you a lot of time. Now, when you you study, give yourself, say for example, 25 minutes. In that 25 minutes, you've removed all your distractions. You remove that iPhone or your Samsung phone or your mobile phone, and you remove that laptop from you because you've got tendency to go onto the internet and browse. So you've removed all the distractions. So you take that study period. In that 35 minutes, you try to, or 25 minutes, you do as much as you can. And what you're doing is you're trying to see how much you can do in 25 minutes in a quick way. What you do is you then give yourself a break for 5 minutes, and then you repeat the process again. So what you do is you go through a topic, you go through a task as quickly as possible, and you basically you go through that task and you go through that topic as quickly as possible. So, and you try to learn as quickly as possible, because if you don't set yourself a time, a topic that could take 25 minutes might take 24 hours, and that's an exaggeration. But what I'm really trying to demonstrate is don't leave it too open. Don't say, okay, I've got 3 hours to study and I'll do this topic. Set yourself a target and a time, and say, okay, I'm going to complete this task by this time. Take a 5 minute break, go do that task, do another task, or continue that task, and then take a break and go on to another task and continue that. And you can do this 3 to 4 times before you take a 15 to 30 minute break. So you can do a 25-minute short on the topic, take a 5 minute break, do a 25-minute topic again, take a 5 minute break, do another 25 minutes, take a 5 minute break, and do another 25 minutes, and so on. And then you could take, after 4 sessions, you could take a 15 or 30-minute break, depending on how you feel. Now, by which time, after following these processes, after watching the YouTube videos, after watching, listening to podcasts on Bite Size and My Maths, and carrying out them activities and tasks, what you can do is you can make your own mini revision guide. So, you've got your CGP guide, but you can make your own revision guide. And this could contain information and diagrams, and that will help you. The condensed information, the revision guide, will allow you to not be overburdened with information, and it will be prompts and probes for you to talk around that, write about around that subject, and understand it. So what one thing is what is important is, when it comes closer to the exam, it's very, very important that you have adequate exam practice. You can't be in a situation where you just learn the information but you don't know how to respond to the questions, because I've noticed children who are prepared for examinations, who have had them sitting conditions where they've sat the exam, are better able to perform in exams than children who don't. So children who have that final exam, and they should work for the last 6 weeks especially. They should time themselves. So if it's an hour exam, maybe 2 months before, give yourself 1.5 hours, and reduce that time to 1 hour 20 minutes, then 1 hour 15 minutes, then 1 hour 10 minutes, then 1 hour. And I would even reduce it to 50 minutes. And I would do that so that you become an expert in managing exams, because exam technique in itself is a skill. Revision is a skill. Exam technique is a skill. You can know all the material. How many times have I come across people who know the material, who come to us and say that I didn't achieve in my exam because I usually identify it to exam practice. So having exam practice, having testing yourself, going into your room and or into the library, and you say, okay, every Wednesday I'm gonna go to the library and I'm gonna give myself an exam. And then I'm going to give it to my teacher to mark, and the teacher will mark. And you know something, many times teachers will be more than happy to help you on topics that you're struggling with. You don't try and suffer in silence on these topics. So give yourself exams. Make sure you put that phone away. You take away them distractions. Make sure you have a quiet area, and you have a bottled water, so that the bottled water, why would you want a bottled water? So that it's important to take liquids in and fluids in, because it's good for the mind and the functioning of the mind. So another thing is, I mentioned earlier, and I'd just like to repeat again, is distractions. Taking away distractions, any type, whatever distracts you, you should try and taking it out of your learning, out of your time. So the phone, if that's a distraction, you should put it in a place where it's not reachable. If a laptop is a distraction, re- or the iPad, whatever is a distraction, take it away from you, and leave it somewhere far away from you, not in the room, so that you're not gonna go on to your phone, or you're not gonna go on to and browse somewhere on the net, and so that you it takes away and eats into your revision time. Closer to the exams, you should be doing this all the time. But even more importantly, it's more important to to make sure that you eat healthily. Children should eat healthily. Children should ensure that they have the the five fruits and vegetables that we're supposed to have, that they have plenty of fluids, and you'll see that when you begin to eat better, your performance will improve significantly as well. So whenever you begin to eat better, your performance will improve. So eating healthy is crucial. It's crucial to exam success. If you don't eat properly, then you might not succeed. And it's imperative, it's essential that you eat well and parents cook well. So one of the things parents can contribute, one of the things that mums can do is, you know, cook healthy meals. Stay away from those burgers and takeaways and those fried items during exam times. We should be eating healthy anyway, but those of us who can't resist during exams should eat healthy, because there's research again which shows clearly that having food and the right foods improves your performance. I can relate this to my own childhood experiences, where my mum used to tell me so much about eating well and eating the right fruits, or the dried fruits, and the nuts and everything else, and which I didn't really. I thought it was or it was tales that her mum told her, and I didn't really appreciate it until academic research is now looking into these things, and things that are from the Asian countries are being researched, and they're scientifically proving in research thesis that this information about eating certain types of foods or eating healthy has the following impact on you. Because you can imagine, if you eat well, then your brain is going to be healthy. But if you don't, then your body is not going to be healthy. And of course, your brain isn't going to be healthy as well. So eating well during the exam times is imperative, it's important. Organization is crucial. If you're not organized, then you're going to waste time looking for pens, looking for paper, looking for folders. By the time you know it, it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes is gone, and you're not organized. And being organized is the art of doing A levels, doing a degree, doing your earlier exams as well. It's crucial. If you're not organized, if you don't remain organized, then what will happen is you'll waste time. Have a list of things to do, prioritize them. You'll have a lot of satisfaction when you tick it off and you look back and think, oh, I just thought I just did three things. But when you look back and you've got a record of the things that you did, then you'll see that you've done really well. So you go back after a week and notice how much you've done. So people revise differently, and we've got to acknowledge that. So the advice that I'm giving you, you might take one aspect of it, or you might take all of it, or you might take a mixture of it, but you should then work out what works best for you, because what works for me, or what works for child A or child B or child C, it can all vary. So like I mentioned, parents need to understand that some people are visual learners, some people are listeners, some people just listen, take the information in. Other people just read and it goes in. I read and it goes in. Whereas some of my students tell me that they listen and it goes in. It just goes in because their concentration is really high. So got to use those techniques, those strategies, those ways, those methods that work impeccably well for you. For now, when you do exams and you practice exams and you do past papers and the teacher marks it, then you've got to then use them exam papers to see how you can improve yourself. So you've got to look at those, you've got to establish patterns and analyze that exam paper and say, okay, these are the core areas where I'm weak at. Out of so many topics, these are the topics I'm not answering really well. When you have to adapt your revision, you have to adapt your learning to that way. So if you don't adapt your learning and you don't target it, because what you've got to do is them exam papers allow you to understand where your weaknesses are. So you've got to target your learning next, which will address those weaknesses and those topics. So you've got to then master those areas where you've got you're weak, and that will allow you to raise your marks and improve your marks, and that will allow you to do a lot better in the next exam next week. So if you have an exam one week, you might have an exam another week, you work through them weaknesses and you have a different paper and you improve on that. What some people do is they retest themselves on that same paper, and until they get 100%, they keep on doing that paper until they get 100%. But they also read into the topics and the weak areas. One of the key things that I think you should do is you shouldn't just do an exam paper and that, right, you've got your weaknesses and you've done it. Why not try that exam paper again? And after you've covered all the topics in depth, and get yourself to 100% or as close to 100% as possible, because you don't want to just get, say, 56% or 63% or 64% and then move on to the next paper. You want to master those topics and master the exam paper, and then you move on. So this is very valuable advice. You're on the Improved Tuition Show. You're listening. We're here every Monday from 5:15 to 7:15. You can Google us on Improved Tuition, or you can go on our website, which is www.improvetuition.org, and you can soon there's going to be literature on our websites which will give you news and articles, and it will give you information and writings about the things, which tips that I've been sharing as well. So it's all okay saying eat healthy. It's all okay saying you should study hard and you should study smart. More than studying hard, it's about studying smart. So what do I mean by studying smart? Knowing, having the right resources around you, like YouTube, or the right revision guides and the right reading skills to integrate all that so that you can succeed. But it's astonishing how many children work themselves up, and because they don't take a break. What do I mean by a break? I don't mean a break for after 30 minutes you take, or 25 minutes or an hour, but you take a 5-minute break. What I mean is you've got to have your flop day. You've got to have your flop day. So you have a day when you simply do nothing related to schoolwork or homework or education. It's crucial that your brain has time to regain its energy. It has time to relax. It has free time to chill, and that it's important that you exercise. Your body needs exercise. You've been exercising your brain. Your brain is growing and growing and growing, because you can learn for longer durations, because you've been doing it a long time, and you're not getting as tired as you were previously. But you've got to make sure you have regular exercises, because your body needs to burn, it needs to kill, it needs to dilute that stress. and you need to let your body sweat, and you've got to let your body exert itself physically so that it doesn't feel overburdened, because sitting on a chair for long hours is going to have an impact on your shoulders, it's going to have an impact on your neck is going to feel heavy, your head is going to feel heavy, and it's gonna make you feel very, very stiff. So it's crucial that you have regular exercises at least 3 times a week. You should have a half an hour exercising, and try to make it sweated exercise. Now, by sweating, you're letting yourself, your body, you're exerting your body, and you know you're exerting your body. If you're not sweating, then you're not exerting your body, and you might loosen up, but you're not getting the maximum out of exercising. So we've talked about how to learn. We've talking about how it's important to have your flop days, and it's important to also sleep well. Many people, I really don't understand how this works. Now, this works when you've left it too late and you're having to do an assignment and you need to hand that assignment in, but you're sleeping till you're working till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. But you should get up late at 8 o'clock and finish at 10, and then have a good night's sleep. I understand that some people feel that they feel better, but make sure that you have adequate hours of sleeping. Not having the adequate hours of sleeping will mean that you're not rewarding yourself, and you're in fact punishing yourself, and you're stressing yourself out, and the information your mind is able to take is going to be a lot less than if your mind has had that sleep, has had that rest, has had that chill out time, has had that nap. So always think about it. Now, when if your child is new to learning and hasn't had a history of learning, and they're going to a year, and it's important, half an hour of learning will be very, very hard initially. A child who hasn't had practice learning will feel so sleepy and so frustrated after half an hour. But by the time we go towards the exams, you can have children. I've done it myself, where I've studied for 7 hours, taking adequate breaks in between. I've done, for example, 1.5 hours in the morning, and then 2 hours slightly in the afternoon, and then 2 hours later on, and then 1 hour later on, and all of that has added up. And taking adequate breaks, going to the gym, going for a walk, breathing, taking a breather, going swimming in between, and it, or socializing with friends, and I've done this. Now, what I would say is it's important that we we recognize that we can't expect a child to do. Right, you're doing 4 hours of study. You can't expect a child to do that. You have to gradually build that child up, so that they might be doing 30 minutes, and then that slowly increases to 40 minutes, and then that increases to 50 minutes, and then an hour. And over 6 weeks, they then be able to do 2 hours. Because you'll find that the child will feel so, for the first 2 months especially, if they're not used to studying, they'll feel so sleepy, because their mind will get tired. Their mind will be growing like a muscle. Mind is a muscle. It's been trained, and it's never been exerted to that level of focus academically, to learning. And so your child will get tired, and you have to be realistic. You cannot push the child more than they can take. You have to build them up. Otherwise, I believe that anybody can succeed. Anybody can succeed. Anybody can learn if you know how to study. Most people can if they know how to study, if they know how to digest that information, if they can organize themselves, they know the strategies for learning. They've got the right health. They're in a routine. They've got the right sleep, enough sleep, and it's gonna be possible to it's gonna be possible to learn, and it's gonna be possible to take that information in and succeed in exams Now, I get the opportunity to work to speak to many people because in education, and I'd just like to share you one experience that one person had, and I'd like to share their experiences. And what they were saying to me was when we entered high school in year seven, what they found was the amount of homework that we were getting in the high school. The school that we were going to was Hem White Grammar, and it's the third top state school in the country. Now, we were establishing what the homework in year seven. We were pretty shocked with the level of homework we were getting, and it helped them immensely later on, because what it did was it helped them to establish good routines from year seven and to meet deadlines, and it allowed them to become disciplined, to become organized, so that they could later use them skills to excel in themselves. So they were able to pick up good routines, were able to meet deadlines because of the level of homework that they were getting from their grammar school. So what I would say to you is, when if you've got a lot of homework, whether you're in year 7, year 8, year 9, year 10, year 11, create a checklist of the things to do. Plan out what you need to do. So you need to plan out what you need to do, and in that checklist you have to include it into that checklist, so that you can plan out what you're doing at what time. And if you can get that work completed during the weekdays, then you can use more of your weekend to enjoy yourself and socialize and take time out. So if you've got homework, do it instantly and do it to the best of your abilities, because that piece of homework, you don't know the skills that you're picking up. If you're, for example, going to do a history piece of homework and you're doing an essay, that if you later do a career where you need to write a report, or you're using language and English, then it's going to help you so much. So you might not see the significance of it today. You might not see the importance of it today, but the skills that you're developing is going to help you in your later studies, in your later years, including university. So do it to your best of ability, and don't leave it to the last moment. Don't leave it to the last moment. Otherwise, what you're going to do is you're going to not leave yourself enough time, and you're going to stress yourself out, and you're not going to pick up the skills that you could have picked up. So things become much, much easier if you're organized. And if you're organized, then it becomes a lot better. Now, people revise differently. They have different ways of revising, as I mentioned, and it's important that the things that I've talked about, you experiment and you find your way of working. We're all so different. We're also different in how we learn. But there's a lot of strategies out there that you could use. It's you finding the methods that work for you. And you might find that what works for you in one part of your life doesn't work for you in a later part of your life. For example, you might find that GCSEs that it's better for you to write questions, convert each paragraph into questions and each sentence into questions, and respond to that question using repetitively those words in sentences. So it goes in quicker because it helps you focus better rather than make it passive learning. Now, you might find that this way of learning you're unable to do it at A level because it's not working for you, and that you need to deploy other ways. Therefore, it's important that from an early age you develop a number of skills of studying, and that you can use and deploy those learning ways and strategies and methods that work best for that situation. Because Maths will need practicing, and biology you learn the material, and then you start applying it into exam questions and understanding. I've had I know people who will work on a paragraph until they get it, and it's these people who go on to having A stars and producing excellent results. They really think, or even when they're outside that the study room, they'll ponder and think over that topic and master it in their minds and build those links and understanding which will help them to succeed. So sometimes you might just have to give special time where you ponder over your learning, and you might not have that textbook in front of you, you might not have that revision guide in front of you, but you're thinking about the things you've learned and you're linking it in different ways. But again, different ways, different methods work for different people, and that's what you've got to understand, that what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly recap on certain things I've been talking about, because we're coming to the end of our program. I talked about revision notes. How to revise was a subject. Some people will read the material and convert them into notes to make them more condensed and concise. Other people will listen to podcasts and go to BBC Bite Size and listen to the podcasts on there. Other children will learn by looking at revision guides and making notes and trying and there's a number of ways that you can learn. So some children will be better working in a group, and they like to work in a pair, and they like to teach people because then they know that it goes into their mind quicker and better. And other children are more visuals. We'll have a piece of paper, we'll have loads of diagrams, we'll have different colors, and they can visualize that page, and that gives them probes for them to answer them exam questions. So you can, one technique is the Pomodoro technique, which basically is where you set yourself a task, set yourself a timer, say 25 minutes, you then basically work and complete that task in that time. You take short breaks. You could, after a 5 minute break, you repeat. You complete another task. You take a 5 minute break, and when you complete another task, and you take a 5 minute break, and so on and so on and so on. So what I'm saying is, you might take a 15-30 minute break, and it's after 4 sessions, or maybe 3 sessions, but you need to make sure that after some reasonable period of time, you need to give your mind a rest. You give your mind a rest because it needs that time to recuperate. It needs that time to take a rest and relax, that fresh of air, that walk outside, that to clear that mind, so you're not stressing yourself out and you're not stressing your brain out. Because when you stress your brain out, that's when you're not working to the maximum. Some children will work on mini revision guides. Some children will create their own mini revision guides, and some children will have cards who with multiple colors and will condense their notes in that way. Again, we talked about removing distractions such as phones, laptops. If you have a tendency to go onto social media, remove them distractions from your room so that you're not going to be in a situation where you're going to be wasting time and you're going to go sidetrack. Also, if you're eating healthy, it's going to help, because think about if you put on weight and you eat unhealthy, then it also affects the way your mind will work as well, because your mind will, if it's not nourished properly, if your brain isn't nourished well, then it won't grow, and you will find, and there's research there which says that if you eat well, then your brain functions better. So eating well is crucial. Taking meal breaks is crucial. Having having an afternoon goal, having an evening goal is crucial. If you when you say for example, you start a piece of learning on a morning, by the afternoon I'm going to achieve so much. By when you take your meal break, and then by the evening I'm going to take this, I'm going to get to this point, and you relax on an evening, and you take it easy, and it's important to build into your 7 days a flop day, and you're building your flop day. In your flop day, you're not thinking about studies, you're not thinking about work, you're not thinking about those things that would otherwise stress you out. Your brain does need that time to relax. Now, you need to sleep well. You need to make sure that you're organized, you have checklists, and um, your weeknights are used very well, so that you take breaks on a weekend and enjoy life as well, and you have a good balance of work and study. Otherwise, if you don't have a great balance of work and study, then that could affect you as well. Now, you've been on the Improved Tuition Show. We're here every Mondays from 5:15 to 7:15. So, and you've been on the Improved Tuition Show. You can go on our website, which is www.improve.org, or you can call us on 01924 50 60 10. You were listening to Al Mubarak Radio with our official partners, Interpal. And thank you for listening, and hope you've benefited. I appreciate the texts I received a couple of weeks ago, and and I love your feedback again, because it was very motivating. So thank you very much. Bye.